Comment, save, share, whatever you can on other accounts. Be engaging with them. Instagram wants to see that, and that's going to help your engagement go up. The algorithm and engagement go hand in hand. And, if you're doing kind of those things that the algorithm wants to see, it's going to get your engagement up because it's going to put people at the forefront of your stories and things like that to where they're seeing it. Um, and then next I have be consistent. This is a huge one. And I know it's really hard, especially for a lot of us that have multiple jobs, but consistency really is key. And this can be anything from 5 times a week to 3 times a week. It's whatever's going to work for you. But regardless, it's just keeping consistent with what you start and keeping it at that. Um, yeah. And then I will say though, what research has shown as far as engagement is that ideal posting, or I guess the minimum ideal posting amount is no less than 4 times a week, to kind of get that engagement kicked into gear. So keep that in mind too, if you really want to hit it hard. Yeah. Make sure that you are also using stories and posting there. I say daily because in my opinion, that's what works best. And that's what's going to keep that engagement going, where your followers are constantly seeing your stuff and talking and engaging and all of that good stuff. Yeah. So next is finding your optimal posting times. And this can be different for every single person. There is kind of this general rule of thumb as far as days and times that have been proven for the majority of people and users that are good times, which I'll go over in a second. But you can find this on your back end analytics. So when you go to your analytics, you can literally scroll down and you can see what time your users are at, like the most active. And I typically recommend to people that they post 20 to 30 minutes before that active time. So it gives it a second to like get there, get on the feed, and then as people are getting on, then they're engaging with it and it continues to go up. Now, that being said, like I said, there are, kind of this optimal time for the majority of users, and that tends to be these following times. It is 2 to 3 p.m. on Thursdays, random. um, it's 11 a.m. on Wednesdays, 10 a.m. on Fridays, and then it's over the overall day, best day to post on Instagram is actually Tuesday, which is really random, but Tuesday's the day. And then Sunday nights after 5 p.m. I mean, and if you think about it yourself, most of us are scrolling on Sunday nights after 5 p.m. So yeah. Um, and I think I have two more points here. So second to last here is video content, video content, video content. I wrote this like in bold because this is what they're really focusing on. So, and like I said, the algorithm goes with the engagement, like they just are hand in hand. But the shorter the better. So the kind of sweet spot right now for videos are 15 to 30 seconds. That's what we really want to aim for. And you're going to want to hook your viewers in though within the first 2 to 3 seconds. So like I said above, just really quickly was that you want to be thinking about what people are going to be sharing and saving. So again, that goes hand in hand with this hook. So whatever you're putting as the text for the hook, it needs to be within the first 2 to 3 seconds. So you're grabbing them, keeping their engagement and keeping their attention to where they're going to continue to watch it and then potentially comment, save, share, all of that good stuff. The longer they stay to watch a video, the higher your engagement goes up on it. Yeah. And then the last thing with the videos is make sure that you have closed captioning. This is huge. Instagram's huge on it. They want to make sure that it's user friendly for everybody. So, if you are talking in it, make sure that your closed captioning is on. And then finally, the last thing that I have here for boosting engagement is, and this seems like just a very straightforward duh thing again, but I think sometimes we kind of forget and we get in our own little world, or we get heated about a topic, or we're passionate about something, or whatever. But community guidelines are huge, so keep those in mind when you are posting. Because if you start getting dings on that, Instagram's not going to love it, and you will kind of get knocked down a little bit. And it's the same concept with TikTok too. But yeah, so keep community guidelines in mind when you post. And that's the gist of it. They're all pretty easy things to do. And I think, realistic. But Yeah, don't think that you can't, start now if your engagement's a little bit lower and fix it. You can. Like you can 100% take these things and start it and implement it. Just might take time, but yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you. That was so good.
Yeah.
And yeah, Jess knows that brands, that's all they ask us for is engagement. That is
Mhm.
really what they are laser focused on. So it's super important. Um, I want to mention, I think we had a little snafu with the time last time. The meeting was at 4:30, so
Yes.
7:30. And so I think there might have been some confusion there, but we have it recorded so we can share it with anyone who's unfortunately not able to make it. Um, and so now we will move into the discussion with Kenya. Um, and so, Daryl, I will hand it to you.
Hi, Kenya. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Good. I can
Okay,
hear you. Hey, I
good.
just had a few questions for you.
hmm
You built an incredible brand as a lifestyle influencer, TV host, and entrepreneur. Can you take us back to the beginning? How did your journey into influencing start?
Absolutely. So I always knew from a very young age that I wanted to work in communications. And actually, like one of my very first inspirations of a woman of color that I saw on television was actually Connie Chung. So
Okay.
she was like the first woman of color. She was so beautiful, so poised, so professional. And I saw her and saw myself in her. This was even before Oprah, right?
Okay.
And so I knew I wanted to work in the communications field. So went to college, majored in mass communications. When I started college, this is in 1998, and my very first day in class, my professor walks in and he says, "Print media, as we know it today, in 10 years will be dead." And that was in 1998, right? Back in 1998, I think I had just got my first cell phone. Cell phones were very new before I had a pager. We were still getting newspapers delivered to our doors. There was no social media. I think this was even before MySpace, even. And so just, the world in media back then was just, very different. But I have always been interested in like emerging media, and I wanted to be, part of that. So majored in mass communications, and I started out my career actually working in media. So early on, I got print, television, and radio under my belt. So one of my very first jobs was working for a radio station and promotions in Sacramento, 103.5 KBMB. I was on the street team, and then also on a show that aired from like 6 to 9, I think, on the weekdays, just kind of as a sidekick. And then I went from there to KCRA TV Channel 3, where I worked in public affairs. Now, at the time, I was really interested in working in like TV news because I saw it as very glamorous. Like I saw Connie Chung, she was beautiful makeup, beautiful wardrobe, and the job looked really easy and glamorous. And so, actually working for a news station, I realized that it's actually not glamorous. You're actually writing your own news stories,
Man.
oftentimes doing your own hair and makeup, like, and it's hard news, and so I got exposed to that early on, and then went on to work for the LA Business Journal, where I got exposed to print media. And I actually worked on the advertising side, working with like national advertisers for the publication. But from those experiences working in media, I learned that I actually didn't really want to work in media. So I thought. so I thought. So I left media and then actually went to go work in public affairs and spent the next 13 years, 14, 15 years working for big major Fortune 50 companies, managing corporate affairs and communications. So some of the companies that I worked for included IKEA, North America, American Honda Motor Company, Jack Specific, which was the third largest toy company in the world after Mattel and Hasbro. And then, being in Los Angeles, I had the itch for entertainment. And so I went to go work for PMK HBH, which at the time, they were the largest entertainment publicity firms in the country. So they repped the likes of Miley Cyrus and Will Smith and, just like all of the A-listers that you can think of. I was a brands and events publicist, so I more or less worked more so with brands and like red carpet events. So like the American Music Awards, for instance. And one of my first events I did was with Louis Vuitton and Kanye West for the launch of a Murakami collection that came out. So I was doing things like that, but realized working in entertainment, I actually did not like it at all. And so I went back, into the corporate world, and my last corporate job, I worked in public affairs for McKissick and McKissick. Now, they're a company that's based in Washington, D.C. They are the oldest African American owned architectural engineering firms in the country. I was based in Los Angeles, and my client was actually the MTA, which is the Metro transportation systems, the government agency. And I basically worked with local stakeholders on like a $3.9 billion mass transit project. And, a year into that job, I really was not feeling fully fulfilled. Now, I liked my job, but it didn't really fulfill all of my passions. And just as a creative outlet, I developed Style and Society, which this is back in, goodness, this is like 2013, right? And it was really just intended just to be my own creative outlet, where I can talk about the things around fashion and around travel and around food and all the other things that my job really wasn't fulfilling. And so I started it, really just as my own thing. And then it just kind of grew and grew and grew and grew from there. And this is before influencer marketing existed. And because I was already creating content and I developed a platform to do it organically, as the influencer marketing world started to grow around like 2016, then organically brands just started reaching out to me, and I started working on different campaigns for brands in addition, to running the magazine. And I think the first like full circle moment for me was like the biggest campaign that I had to date, and this is a campaign with Macy's, right? The reason why it was full circle for me is because the first job that I ever had was actually at Macy's. I was 15 and a half, worker's permit, and I worked in women's shoes for Macy's, right? So it's like, that's one full circle moment. Two, one of the first jobs that I had outside of college that relocated me to Los Angeles was working for the American Cancer Society. Now, this campaign was an event at Macy's that benefited the American Cancer Society. And then three, it was for Simone Smith's jewelry line, who is the wife of LL Cool J. Now, I actually knew Simone's personally. So it was just like triple threat, like all of these things just aligned. And it was the most amount of money I had ever made on a partnership or collaboration or campaign. So I was like, wow, like maybe I could like really do this full time. But I am a Libra. Libras are not risk takers. And to be honest, like I didn't have anybody really that was an entrepreneur that took me under their wing or I could look up to or I grew up with. My mom was a teacher, my dad, he worked for the post office and he was in the military. And so that's who I had really, to look up to. So I went to my job and I said, hey, like, can I telecommute? Can I work from home? Can I go part-time? But I was trying to figure out a way to do both. And they weren't receptive to it. Now, this is way before the pandemic, way before it was the norm for people to work from home. And so I just ended up quitting. I quit my job. And, which is crazy because like, I come from an era where, we were in a recession. It was hard to get a job. You were just lucky to have a job. Like, you know what I mean? Like to quit a job where you're making six figures on a whim is just crazy. So when I did, I actually didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anyone. But um, what I will say now is, sometimes, you could block your own blessings and you have to be open enough to be able to receive them. And as soon as I did, then the abundance really started to flow through. And, I immediately got signed to a management company, brand deals, just, multiplied, just everything just like elevated.
That
And so, yeah.
that kind of leads me to my next question. At what point did you realize you could turn content into a full-time business?
Yeah, I think with that first Macy's campaign, that's when I realized because like the amount of money that I made on, to be honest, all I really did was show up to an event and I did a post about it. And it was something that I would have done anyway. I would have gladly done it anyway. And so, some people say like, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And so like
Yeah.
that was it for me. I was like, oh, like maybe this can actually really be a thing.
And I was going to say, you've partnered with some major brands, including hotels, travel companies. How did you break into that space?
So, I started the magazine before I was an influencer or a content creator, right? Back when I started the magazine, and once influencer marketing really started to grow and blossom, influencers back then were really like reality stars and celebrities, right?
Mhm.
Influencer and then the content creators we know it today, back then didn't really exist. And so I don't know, I think my catalyst was actually the magazine. So the magazine is called Style and Society Magazine. Because I had experience working in media, I wanted to create a publication that really celebrated diversity. And so the
Mhm.
magazine is about like fashion, lifestyle, food, travel, entertainment, beauty, all the things that I loved, right? And so in terms of my content that I create working with brands, it really follows the same I guess silos as a magazine. So when I first started, a lot of people said, oh, you need to stick to a genre, you need to focus on one thing.
Mhm.
And I was like, I'm a dynamic woman. I like a lot of different things. Like, why should I put myself in a box? And
Right.
so the content that I create is really about the intersection of all of those things coming together and telling that story. So it's not just travel, it's not just fashion, it's not just food, it's not just entertainment or beauty. It's about all of those things coming together and telling that story.
Would you say you attracted the brands that you work with? Did you pitch yourself, or that just comes out of you, or did you reach out to someone, or?
No, I've actually never like proactively pitched myself. It's always been either, my management agency that's pitching me or brands coming to me directly.
Okay, okay. When it comes to securing travel partnerships, what brands do you typically use for an influencer? Or what brands typically look for in an influencer?
What do brands look for in an influencer?
Yes.
Yeah, I think on the travel tip, I think a blend of really high quality content and engagement. So a
Okay.
blend of, reels, carousel posts, stories, are you active on other platforms? Are you active on, YouTube or like TikTok or, other platforms? But, really, really, thinking about, brands are looking for, how can we maximize reach and exposure?
Understood.
And can you provide that?
And how do these deals usually work? Are they paid comp stays or a mix of both?
It's a mix of both.
Okay.
Some are paid, partnerships. Some are collabs. So it kind of depends on, what the brand is or what the deliverables are, or, you know,
Okay.
I always say like for me, if it's something that, I would already want to do anyway, like I would do it because I would already do it anyway. You know what I mean? And
Right.
like not every brand has a budget. And like I think travel, like compared to like all those different categories, travel travel is a little different because I think travel has a little bit less budget per se than like, you know, the entertainment or lifestyle or fashion or like beauty, right?
100%.
Um,
Another
so
question: what advice would you give to influencers who want to start with hotels or travel brands that but don't have a million followers? What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I would say, you know, you should just start posting. Like don't wait for a brand deal. You should just start posting organically, posting good content, you know, focusing on that, and then the
Mhm.
brand deals will come. But, you know, the most important thing is you have to be consistent. Number one, like I try to make a goal to post, you know, like once a day, right? Sometimes it's
Yeah,
not once a day, sometimes it's once every other day, but it's just like, you know, it's part of like my routine, right?
continue.
You have to be consistent on social, and your content has to be like very like high quality. You know, something that would attract a brand essentially. And then I think engagement is really important. You know, spending time every day engaging on other people's posts, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's not just about your content, but it's also about inspiring others and encouraging others, and then you'll receive like the same love back.
And what's one of the most memorable brand collaborations you've done, and what made it stand out?
Oh, that's a very hard question because I don't know. I've worked with so many brands.
Or a recent one that you might want to share.
Yeah,
Um, well, I mean, I guess a recent one is like you know, I last week I went to China. This was my second time in China. I was in China back in what like last year, like August or September or something last year. But both times I was working with essentially the tourism boards. One was for Guangzhou, China, which is southern China. And then the first time I went to China last year was to Beijing, basically like the Shandong province in like northern China. And so yeah, so both of those actually they weren't paid collaborations, but there were also like no strong deliverables attached to it, right? So I could pretty much go and just create what I wanted to create with no expectations or deliverables attached to it. Um, you know, and I was able to bring a photographer, videographer, right? So it's not all about, I think, money. Some people always like look at, well, like, you know, it's you know, it's under my rate, but you also have to think about like long term and like what it will like lead to, right? And so like now, like in addition to, you know, traditional like influencer posts, now I also and working with different hotels, for instance, and doing actually just paid content for them. So paid content meaning like it doesn't require me to post on my platform, but they want to use my content that I create on their platforms. And so I'm doing like paid campaigns where I don't even have to post anything.
Like
that
UGC.
kind of leads me to my next question. You talked about engagement earlier. What are your top tips for creating content that actually gets people to interact?
So for me, like if like as soon as I post, um, then I immediately engage with other people's posts. So I spend like a good, I don't know, maybe like 15 minutes or so every day after I post my content, just like engaging with everybody, right? I don't really engage on social media throughout the day. My engagement and my posts are like very like scheduled. So as soon as I post, then I'll spend the next 15 minutes and I'll just like go down my feed and like and engage, you know, everyone's, you know, content, you know. So I think engagement is really important. Also to stay active on reels, carousels and also like stories if we're talking about Instagram. Some people actually don't really look at posts, they only look at reels. Some people
Right.
don't look at reels, they only look at stories, you know? So you have to like appeal to the audience and really kind of like spread the love all over. Um, you know, my biggest platform is Instagram. I mean, I'm also on like YouTube and I'm on TikTok and, you know, but you know, my biggest platform is in fact Instagram. I think it's way more stable than TikTok. I
Okay.
think TikTok is very much so turned into um, you know, almost like a shopping platform, like live shopping, which
Mhm.
is fine, but it's just changed. And so I find that more brand deals happen on Instagram. And I think Instagram just offers for now like more longevity. Also, like TikTok, for instance, is blocked in a lot of places. Like, you know, in China, for instance, TikTok doesn't exist. They can't download it, it's not available.
Have you noticed certain types of content perform better when it comes to engagement, especially in the travel and lifestyle space?
You know, I'm really different, and I don't know if like the advice that I give is necessarily accurate or truthful, but for me, early on I spent so much time like worrying about, oh, I need to do this transition because it's on trend, or I need to use this song because it's on trend, and I was spending so much time like chasing trends and not enough time, you know, like creating my own content and actually being creative and doing my own thing instead of having to follow trends, right?
Yeah,
So now, to be honest with you, like I don't follow trends when it comes to like videos, when it comes to transitions, when it comes to songs, when it comes to anything. You know, I just stay true to, um, you know, what I like, and I do it.
How do you
And
keep your,
mhm.
I'm sorry, how do you keep your audience engaged even when you're not actively traveling? You're kind of just saying something about that. Is it working on campaigns, or how do you keep your audience engaged that way?
Yeah, so it's blending a little bit of everything. So it's like working with beauty clients on campaigns, working on fashion clients with campaigns, like entertainment-based clients. So it's like from post to post, everything is a little bit different. So whether you're really into sports or whether you're really into food or whether you're really into travel, it's like it's something for everybody. Like my content really offers a little bit of something for everyone.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for your time. It was a pleasure meeting you. And you gave
Nice
some
meeting you
great
too.
answers, and I hope everybody learned something out there today because you were giving game. So much appreciated.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
so much. That was wonderful. Hearing about your journey, some of which I knew, but I learned some new stuff too. So that was great. And thank you, Jess. We have a couple minutes if anyone has a
Yeah.
question. Um, if not, then we can wrap it up and see you guys again. I think we're gonna do these monthly, so we will probably see you again next month.
Right.
Thank you.
Mm,
Everyone.
Bye.
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 Kenya.
Bye.